Well, it is a headline that exploded right across North America. This created a national debate over the problem of rape culture on campuses. A Rolling Stone exclusive, so vivid in its account of a young woman who claimed that she had been gang raped by University of Virginia's frat party. Except the problem is the story wasn't true. And now Rolling Stone is completely backpedaling, trying to get its way out of it. And it's apologizing, but I don't think that's going to cut it. Let's bring in Alyssa Freeman. You're a PR consultant. The story of Jackie, which was, displayed out in Rolling Stone magazine, it was explosive. It was a kind of story that you get once in a lifetime, but it completely relied on only the account of Jackie. So therefore, the writer of this story didn't do the basics of fact-checking that we are trained from day one. And yet Rolling Stone went with it. I mean, they named the university, they named the name of the frat house, all of this because some anonymous woman named Jackie came up with this story.
Well, first of all, I think there's a couple of things at play here. First of all, she wasn't anonymous. Her name had been changed, but they certainly knew who she was. The first thing is, if we backpedal a little bit, is that any story on women and sexual violence is kind of, and I hate to say it, a hot topic right now. So when Rolling Stone was approached with this story, they figured that, okay, this is our stake in the ground. We're a noteworthy magazine. We're known for investigative journalism for many, many decades. So
Hunter S. Thompson's been gone for a long time.
I was just about to say that, Alex. I can't believe
gone are the good days. Gone are the good days.
Okay, so this was their way to get back into the fold. So they took this story, and as you said, they did not go to any other sources, which is kind of shocking knowing the investigative journalism history that Rolling Stone has. Now, why didn't they go to any sources, one may ask? Well, there's a lot of women who don't come forward with these type of stories about sexual violence because they fear reprisal. So maybe the folks at Rolling Stone thought, well, you know what, we understand that, so we're going to bend the rules a little bit and not go and check other sources, which is kind of odd, especially since they had legal take a look at this.
Well, but here's the thing. We get stories all the time in the media. Had one recently. I had to go to my lawyer, had to go for an hour long, and there were various parts that we couldn't corroborate, so the story goes away. You cannot, just like the Toronto Star with Jian Ghomeshi, they had that story for months. They didn't go with it because it was so litigious that it wasn't until Jian Ghomeshi put it into print himself that they were able to get around it and name the names to make sure that they were following the laws. You can't go to air and you can't go to print with stories that are not corroborated. So therefore, if I'm the lawyer at Rolling Stone and I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, okay, so you're going on this one woman's account. You've named the school and this particular frat house. We can't do that. And yet they did anyway. I mean, if I'm Rolling Stone, they're not just in big trouble. They're going to be sued probably into oblivion, as they should be.
Well, it's interesting because once the story came out, the spark that it lit underneath the actual narrative of campus violence, and especially against women, was phenomenal, quite honestly. You know, there was a number of protests, there was a number of quote-unquote slut walks.
The frat was closed down.
The frat was closed down. They couldn't sing their Glee Club song anymore because it was overtly about, fraternity men's exploits against women. You know, Alex, I have to tell you that, first of all, we don't know how much of this story is untrue. There are some things
nothing can be untrue.
That's true. There are some things where her details are fuzzy, but the whole narrative of campus rape and the narrative that 1 in 5 women on U.S. college campuses are raped every year, that you can't deny. So I'm having a hard time.
You're right, though,
with the push and pull of saying that the whole story isn't true. Yes, they should have checked their facts, but that's not saying that the issue isn't true.
No, but here's where the danger comes in. To any woman who has had this experience, to any woman who's come forward, or any woman who's thinking of coming forward, they have done such a disservice to them, because you have to be so careful with these stories, because the fallout, the spin-off is so
Or they've taught them a lesson. Or they've taught them a lesson.
Well, no, but Rolling Stone shouldn't be taught lessons. I mean, it was a little local rag that started investigating this and started realizing that basic fact-checking would have blown this narrative, even to the point that there was no party that weekend. That's a simple fact check that the author of this should have said, hold on a second, we didn't even check that there was a party that weekend. That right there, to me, I mean, and now I'm reading narratives, which really bothers me, of people and bloggers who are saying, well, okay, so this didn't maybe happen, but I know someone like Jackie, and so therefore it's okay to put this story out there. It's not okay to come up with any kind of false narrative to drive an agenda and or a cause. You have to be factual. If that's the route we're going in journalism, we're in trouble.
Well, what I mean by the lesson is this, and you're right, you have to be factual. And there's a number of women who are becoming a little bit more brave in going to the media with their stories. So what's the lesson that they learned? Number one, if you're going to have a story, you can't say, don't talk to these people. You can't shelter yourself from what reprisals there will be. In this day and age, there still will be. And you will be targeted and you will be dragged through the mud. But if you are going to go through the story, go through with it in the first place, then you have to understand the ramifications. The second thing is that you cannot be fuzzy on your details. If you're a woman who is going to be brave enough to come forward, then you absolutely have to give all the details. You know, I was listening to the radio about a woman who went through this whole thing about 10 years, basically, and she went trial after trial after trial, and the first thing she said was, I was able to get through this and win her claim because she says, I told the truth. There are some things that you might find embarrassing, but you know what? They're going to find out about it anyways.
Yeah, and it'll be much worse if your narrative is found to not be true, because now this story's taken a completely different turn.
It has.
And Rolling Stone, I don't know if they can recover from this. I don't know how they recover from this, because, you know, they tried to shock people with the Boston bombing cover. You know, they tried to make him into somewhat of an idol, somewhat, you know, like a Jim Morrison, the way he was displayed out.
That's right.
With their famous cover of the Doors singer many years ago, and it didn't work. I mean, you get no credibility from me, you get no pat on the back. You know, the narrative that comes to mind in Canada is the NDP MP who went to Justin Trudeau with an allegation against a Liberal MP. And again, as I read the story now, the narrative is not fitting the allegation.
Well, the problem here is that, again, the whole notion of jumping on the story of women and violence and doing something about it kind of supersedes looking down the whole road and getting all the facts first, which is not what happened. So, you know, they heard about Justin Trudeau, heard about the allegations, decided to jump on it very, very quickly and say, okay, I'm dismissing these two MPs, and that's the end of it. Now they're in a bit of hot water because not only did they not have all the facts, maybe they still don't have all the facts right now.
Or maybe she's confused of
what's the due course that's going to happen, because they jumped too closely on it. I think that what all these things are teaching us is that, yes, this is a topic that we have to take very, very seriously. Yes, this is a topic that we have to do something about. However, don't treat it as the next fad. Don't treat it as the topic of the topic du jour. You really have to take this seriously.
Yeah, but you know, in an industry that's not new, I mean, I know the deadlines are now 24 hours. Social media is a 24-hour machine. The one simple rule never changes. Always fact check.
Yes, but you know what I find now?
It doesn't matter if you're first. If you're wrong, you're
but
finished.
There's a new rule. There's a new rule, Alex. It's be first and say sorry later.
How many obits have we done on Morgan Freeman? How many times have all these people died and we've been wrong? I mean, it's just not worth it to be first anymore.
I know.
And I think this Rolling Stone article. So you're an Image. You know about Image. Can Rolling Stone come back?
You know what? I think that they can. I think that they will.
You're
generous.
A
magazine isn't going to fold underneath this as long as they make their mea culpas.
Well, they're looking at a lawsuit from at least the university.
Yeah.
And specific frat house. Any guy who is a member of that particular frat house is now a rapist. I mean, how do you not be damaged by that?
I think that first of all, while they didn't name names, they still didn't really name all names.
They said that, but if you're on your resume and you're part of this like really well-known, somebody would be like, what, that one? Oh, I read an article in Rolling Stone magazine. I mean, this to me is very problematic, and I just think any young writer getting into the business or blogging, I mean, the fundamentals of this trade and this industry cannot go the way of,
but who drives that? But who drives that? Because you know what, there are way too many, and you even said how many obits for Morgan Freeman. It's the whole thing about get out first, and don't worry, we'll correct it later. And that seems to be sort of the new mantra coming out of media outlets.
I've always, and
you might not subscribe to it,
and
but there are plenty of people who do.
I would rather be late and right than first and wrong.
I agree.
Because there is nothing worse than having to say, I'm sorry. And even Rolling Stone, in its apology, again, put the blame on this alleged victim instead of saying, hey, we wrote it, we allowed it, we didn't fact check it, we're wrong. They didn't even apologize properly.
You know, there's a lot of culpability that goes around. And it'll be really interesting to see how this story plays out in the coming days and weeks.
No kidding. Geez, you know, but for anybody who is thinking of coming out, I mean, I hope this isn't a deterrent to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it takes a lot of guts. All right, Alyssa, thanks so much. Always.